And here we are. You see the players have reversed sides, so Harshan's got to gather his equipment and move back. In customary form, the player playing first is on the left side of the stream. We've been setting it up that way all tournament, and we'll continue doing so. Harshan looks to make it 8 for 8 on finalists winning on the left side of the stream with the first play to be made. And we will see if David is able to break serve. There will be a lunch break after this game. I'll confirm with our production crew how long that break is going to be. I think that's going to be a decision largely up to the players themselves, but we'll communicate with the chat, with everybody following along what time play will resume. We'll also leave a message up on Twitch so that everybody who's walked away for a minute can figure out exactly when play will resume again. But a break will occur after this game. One of these two will likely be 2-1 going into that break. With some more Scrabble left to play, we have already guaranteed a game 5. And more so than me wanting one of these two gentlemen to win, I'm hoping we get 7 games of Scrabble here. And I think those at home would like to see 7 games of Scrabble as well. How exciting would that be? A game 7, 1 game, winner take all situation would be so intense. I think we're all rooting for that here. While they shake the bag, let's see some love in chat. If you are absolutely on Team Harshan or Team David, throw a message of love. Let us know who you're rooting for. If you're just Team Scrabble rooting for 7 games, let's hear that as well. Let's get these copy pastas out of chat and the love going once again. I think we may have a commentator change as well, if that's what I see at the top.
I'm back.
Ooh, maybe he needs to.
Gotta clear my voice if I'm going to come anywhere close to Wellington's dulcet tones that are having people want him to read the dictionary. But yes, I'm back for Game 3 alongside Josh. Thank you very much. This is not the last you will see or hear of Wellington. He'll be back for the afternoon games as well. Just doing a bit of a rotation here as we get underway.
Yeah, look at this.
Great pull for Harshan. EMOPST blank on the first turn. He's certain to bingo here. In these racks, you generally try to make the blank one of the letters you already have on your rack, if possible, and he'll have options to make the blank a P or an M here. Do you guys see those bingos?
Yeah. Yeah. I see he could play op times as well, I guess. That's the first thing I saw. But yeah, he has a variety of options here.
I like the bingo of stepmom in this situation the best. That's going to play, check all the boxes, avoid putting a vowel next to a double letter square, avoid giving David one additional floater. And
well, you know what I'm going to say? You know what I'm going to say, Matt?
What are you going to say?
Play it with the S on the star.
Oh, geez. Team Chaos.
That would be a shocking positioning, of course. That would be the ultimate content move that would cause the Twitch chat to go berserk to see Stepmom be played with the S on the star, creating an absolutely gargantuan S hook needlessly. But we would love it.
It would certainly be exciting. Would it be strategically correct? Almost definitely not. There are certain words where that does become a factor, like a bingo where the fifth letter is the Q that would come down on the first turn. Something like oblique is a really fun one. Do I grab the extra 20 points now, or do I play defensively? But otherwise, it would just be a needless aggression from Harshan, who we've seen already a defensive mastermind over the board.
Yeah, and how long do you take on these moves is an interesting question, because of course you have limited time. Interesting.
It's moppets, I believe, here.
Okay. And that is a valid word.
Does the same thing as stepmom in terms of giving out the same letter twice, giving a P twice instead of a new floater, and it doesn't take a back hook like stepmom does. Uh-oh.
Oh, God.
Mopiest.
Harshan.
This is mopiest, I think.
Okay. Yeah. It's not
unless
mopist. Okay.
Well, we'll have to see. We don't know for sure yet.
we always have a hard time with our team on the ground. We don't want them to needlessly, what's that blank, because it could give tells or inferences to the other players. I imagine this is Mopiest with the confirmed from our team on the ground. It is an I, so Mopiest at the bingo here for Harshan. ACEIJNV, the rack for David to respond now. And, with a deficit like this, of course, Wellington let us know you always want to think about board shape and board dynamics when you can. Would you make a play like jive through that I? I guess I should lead. Will, would you make a play through like jive through the I?
I mean, obviously, the idea of getting the J and V off on the same move is incredibly appealing, but it also gives such easy access to that middle right hand triple that I guess it would be in the same lane as the E of Mopiest. If you imagine jive going through that I, any 6-letter word that reaches the triple would do so much damage. So it could be a play that's warranted just by being, at an early deficit. And I do think of David as being a player who is willing to take on positional risk like that if he thinks that mathematically it's his best chance. So let's see what he does.
I mean, this is such a dangerous move. Not only the triple threat, but also all of the hook letters on jive. Just an R, a D, or a Y will hook onto jive, allowing Harshan to make any vertical plays. But luckily for David, Harshan does not have any of those letters. I was thinking more about a play like Taj from the T of Mopiest, and the reason to do that would be that keeping CEINV on the rack left over, if you only draw an I or a U, you will have a play reaching 2 double word scores through the O of Mopiest of unvoice or invoice. There are probably other similar benefits, and Taj would have done a decent job of keeping both sides of the board somewhat accessible.
Yeah, so Harshan unable to hit any of those hooks. EIIFOQV, the rack here. Stuck to decide, do I play the Q with QI and MI and leave a subpar EFIOV leave, or do I cash in points now, hold IOQ, but set up at least QI for 22 next turn, hold the I to play QI and MI, and move on to the next turn? Will, do you prefer 5 or QI in that situation?
I think 5 looks good just because, it is kind of a case study in why jive actually does work out well sometimes when your opponent just doesn't draw quite that well on their pick after that bingo. You can get away with a play like jive and max out your chance of drawing a bingo, which David has done. So this is kind of the plan coming together after jive for David here. And I do think 5 is a fine play by Harshan. It's going to be met with this bingo. I guess the only question here, where to place carry on, which R do you want to use?
Oh, it's no question.
And I think this is definitely the correct choice.
It's so much harder to...
more defensive.
So much harder to overlap that I.
Yeah, just definitely the call for David. So you need your opponent to miss 4 Ds, 3 S's, 2 Ys, and 6 R's in the bag. And of course, Harshan did that, and David pulls 2 R's in a bingo. So big swing of events here. Harshan now with that Q on his rack. Will he play it or try to hold it for a huge play next turn? He can play Meow, MIAOW, from the M and Mopiest for 20. He can play Coin to the N in Carry On. He can play MAQUI from that M in Mopiest. Josh, or he could play OW, IO and OW on the right side of Carry On. That I think most consistent with the style we've seen from Harshan. But Josh, play the Q here, play Meow and hold the Q, or block the triple word. What's your priority?
Oh, I would be looking for plays that open another Q spot on some other part of the board and hoping to draw just a massive play next turn. I don't know that I would end up making any of those plays, but it's interesting to consider maybe something like Awa and MA forming from the M in Mopiest, and potentially trying to draw into something from that A or through the eye of carry on. But I think at the score that it is right now, just taking points for maybe Maki, that was the first thing I saw, I think makes a lot of sense here. The W is not a great tile, but it can be used next turn to score something. So I'm liking this decision by Harshan, but I definitely would have maybe taken a bit longer to look for something that might not even be there. Maybe like wait to the T of Mopiest.
Yeah, I just think what we're seeing now with David is he's going to play FEUED for a huge overlap that maybe coin to that N of carry-on does a lot to block there.
Oh, yeah.
So, just getting in the way a little bit of those overlaps. Not that, it is a worst case scenario for Harshan that David drew the F, the only tile that productively plays to the right of the I of carry-on, but maybe a missed opportunity to prevent such a big play there by playing coin.
Yeah. I didn't even have time to see that play by the time that Harshan made his play of Maki. So yeah, I think potentially that was a missed opportunity. That play looks very good. That might just be hindsight talking. But.
True. Yeah, I was thinking also that maybe I'm overcorrecting based on this particular scenario where David scored 50 points with that overlap. And sometimes maybe you regret playing coin for similar reasons, but might have worked out better here.
And we see a nice H and an S draw and a bingo for Harshan.
So yeah, air show the draw for Harshan on his rack. Very nice into his AOW.
Wow.
Air show will play in a number of spots. He'll look to decide if he's playing it as a 7-letter word, AS and IT for 73, or if he opts for 69 points, playing it through or to the S in Mopiest. Will, what's your priority here? Do you just score the points, or do you think about the positional elements of these plays?
I just want to call out how close I would be to playing WOAH in the upper right corner of the board, leaving SRI. That scores 53 points, leaving solid letters over. I don't think I would actually end up playing that, though, because there aren't really any great S hooks on the board. This isn't a board where a 7-letter word ending in S will easily play. So I do think I would end up playing this bingo. I do understand this positioning. And I think I'm slightly favoring it. But yeah, again, it would have been tempting to play whoa in that upper right corner there. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, interesting. I think this decision makes sense. Harshan's really giving David around one turn to make something happen here. Maybe scoring on the middle left triple, or playing a bingo through the A, which I think is what's going to happen here for David with his nice blank draw.
Yeah, so I'm running a simulation on that turn, WOAH, about a point beneath this bingo that Harshan chose and about 2 points between the 73-pointer, or 2 points beneath the 73-pointer. But that's on a 2+ sim. Computer programs are flawed for a number of reasons. We can get into all that nuance after the action here. But air shows for 69, the bingo. He'll get hit back with David's blank bingo, signaled with a blank E, a double-double, scoring 86 points, and the only double-double David had on his rack. So Harshan pulls ahead briefly, but already back behind before he even puts all 7 tiles on his rack. And he's drawn ACEGOOT. He's looking to score some points here. He'll have different options to do so. COGON or COGENT, play to or through the N in signaled here. Or maybe he looks to get very aggressive. GOO above Makui, scores just 13 but holds ACET. Will, what would you look to do in this situation?
I worry a little bit about making a lower scoring play that keeps a good leave here. This is not a wonderful board. There is the D of feud, which David played a few turns, no pun intended, a few turns ago. But that's not a great bingo line, and it's really the only one where I would be feeling optimistic holding an E, trying to end something in ED here. Otherwise, I would be looking to get some points here and continue to open the board. If Harshan plays something like Cogent or Kogan Kogan to the N of signaled, he has to know that after David's next play, he's still going to be facing a deficit. So opening the board now and evening the score, hoping to draw that next bingo with your decent bingo leave. I think that's what I would do here.
Josh, do you concur?
Yeah, absolutely in agreement with Kogan. I think Kogan's a lot better than Cogent, keeping the AET combination, which works very well with the letters that are now hanging on this board, that D in FEUED, that D in signaled, now the C, the O, and the G. I think Harshan has good chances to draw something next turn, and he is at a slight deficit for sure, having made his move and not having quite tied David's score with it being David's turn. I think you have to make the play of Kogan, which Harshan did.
David now has found a number of high-scoring tiles. He has drawn the Z, which is always great to have. He has also drawn the K, which is going to score very nicely under the O in air shows. So TIK or TIKE, both options to cash that K and retain the Z here. He's also got the ability to blow this board wide open, KYRIE and ES. At the top of this board is 36. YIKED to the D in signal is 34. Will, of these options, what's your favorite?
It's hard not to play that K under air shows, but I just want to point out that Harshan managed to draw the X and multiple playable bingos through the letters of Kogan somehow. The X, not a tile that we associate with being good for playing bingos, but Harshan's managed to draw 2 Collins-only bingos through those letters he just opened. So even after David makes his high-scoring play, Harshan's going to get a bunch of points, and then the only question is, what play will Harshan choose, and will it give David Eldar a really good response with that Z? That's going to be a big swing here. But I think something like Tick or Tyke is fine. But let's see if David is going to go a different direction. Josh, what do you think?
Well, so he has Kyrie lined up. I mean, okay, he's thinking about it. It's definitely a move to think about, but it looked like he was about to play that. I think that play is very, very aggressive. I really like the option of Yiked here. It really deals with the opening that Harshan just made, and with your scoring tiles, you can be sure that you're usually going to be at an advantage here in this position. But he's playing Tyke, scoring some points, and keeping that very interesting YZ or YZ combination that might work out very nicely for him. And it's going to be a close game after the next 2 plays, after the next 2 moves.
Now Harshan with an interesting decision. As Will pointed out, 2 Collins-only bingos. Exigent plays through the G. Exitence plays through the C. But he's also got the ability now to play OKE and WEX. That is 51 holding AEINT. Also very nice tiles. Will, would you bingo here?
It's hard to remove myself from the actual game scenario and see that the bingo through the G of exigent would make an enormous Z spot. So Harshan dodging a bullet there by going ahead and playing this bingo instead of the one through the G. As for your suggestion of just playing EX underneath there, that is very tempting as well, because the 2-turn sequence of scoring 50 now and then another 70 or maybe a little less on a bingo of a subsequent on his subsequent turn is very tempting. And with those letters of Kogan open, you might have a chance of doing that. I think I still favor just taking the bingo now, though.
What is the back hook to exigent?
It takes an E at the end, I think.
So that would be
another reason to beware of that play for sure. So
yes. So Exitance, the play for Harshan. He pulls ahead by 20 points. Is that an exit that is also an entrance? Is that something similar to an entrance? Or is that something else? I'd like to get a definition. Chat will help us out in a few minutes. But David now will respond with the Z that he held last turn. He has Dozy on the left side of Signaled for 42. Zori in the same spot that word takes it back, L and S. He's rather aggressive. He can hold the Z one more turn and play Dry and Wed. What do you look to do here, Josh, with the Z on your rack?
Yeah, it's an interesting position. I do want to mention for those that are just joining, we're having great viewership for this championship. We are using some terminology, the word bingo or bonus, that refers to using all of your tiles, getting a 50-point bonus added to your score, and a hook, of course, being a letter that you can add to a word already on the board. But yeah, as for your suggestion of what to do, the ZZ tile, that is such a strong tile. You always want to be scoring a lot of points with it. So something like Zori, you can play it making SI from the S in Signaled. That's a lot less dangerous than playing it on the left of Signaled. But the reduction in score is a whole lot. I would be more prone to maybe playing something like Dozy, not opening anything massive here. But yeah, keeping the Z tile with WED and DRY, which David was considering a few moments ago. That also looks very strong, hoping for a better option with the Z very soon.
Lots to think about here. David probably going to spend his time comparing a number of options that are different in what they do, but similar in overall win percentage, and going to have to figure out a philosophical approach. One other neat option from the WE, he can play Weirdy, WEIRDY. That's only 26 now, but also looks to be a good option that doesn't give much back to his opponent. Lots to think about. Will, what are your thoughts on this turn?
I do feel very tempted by Josh's suggestion of Dozy here, but it is worth noting that you certainly gain a lot in defense, not giving any hooks back after a play like that, compared to Zori, certainly on the lower part of Signaled, parallel to the E and the D. But keeping IRR has its own set of risks. If you do happen to draw, there's one more I, one more R. You can really get into some brutal situations that will slow you down terribly on your next move. So there is some value in keeping that rack flexibility for next turn. And instead, David is going to play Dry, taking the patient route. Maybe he will draw a play with the Z that is a little more defensive and makes him feel better about scoring well and not opening anything up. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I like this decision. When in doubt, keep the Z is one of the things I like to say. We'll see what he draws here. He draws an E, he draws an L, and he draws a T. So that's pretty good. That's pretty balanced. He's going to have some better options next turn that score very well and that don't open such massive comeback spots for Harshan, who's sitting on some very clunky tiles. Not
tiles that are clunky, but they'll play together nicely. Mound, bound, pound, some options there. Imbound plays at the top from the E. Looks like Mud plays very nicely alongside Exitent. EM, XU, and ID is 32. So would you look to play like Mound, Bound, Pound alongside Signaled and open this board? Imbound from the E, or Mud alongside Exitons, Josh?
I think there's also, potentially the option of Dumbo and OS going vertically to the S and Signaled. A lot of these options score similarly well. If you play something like Mud next to the E, X, and I, making those two-letter words, you're scoring very well, but the B and the P combination, it's not going to allow you to do very much a lot of the time next turn. So, again, with the slight potentially no longer deficit, I would say, that Harshan has. It's pretty much an even game now, it being his turn. I'd probably be just working to score some points and keep some letters that go decently together. So something like Bound looks pretty good. Something like Dumbo looks pretty good as well.
Will, what are your thoughts here?
I'm just thinking that it feels like there is a decent chance that we may not see another bingo through the rest of the game if the players are playing cagily enough. So I'm looking and I'm thinking that while, as Josh said, Harshan is about to really, I guess he's sort of been struggling slightly behind the whole game. He's now about to take a small lead. But from his POV, I think the two most important tiles here are the Z, which David has, and there is still one more H, which I would love to get if I was Harshan, to play something in that upper right corner. If you're a North American-based player, that word CH probably looks a little unfamiliar, but in the worldwide English lexicon, it is an established two-letter word, and a play there looks like it could be really damaging on a board where bingos don't play that easily. So if I'm Harshan, I'm tempted by a play like Mud alongside the X of Exitance, but I do really like the idea of playing a few more tiles to try to get my hands on the Z or the H here. That feels like two really important tiles.
The big question then, how do I play more tiles without giving up opportunities back to my opponent? Inbound from that E looks to be very solid as long as you don't get bingoed back on. Let's reveal the unseen pool, maybe a little earlier than we typically do, but this will give our viewers just a little bit more perspective on what Harshan is looking to pull in this bag. Here comes Dumbo.
So you see those unseen tiles, Josh. It looks pretty good. Looks like a lot of low point tiles, not too many clunkers left. So even though the board is not super open, a play like Dumbo does open a little bit. There's still some chances of maybe a bingo coming down.
Yeah, as the players are correcting a score, this does happen pretty often. In the middle of the game, you see the clocks are stopped. It seems like Exitance, there's a debate on how much that's scored, a little dispute there. That's totally normal as David's clock is restarted. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, the board is still pretty caged up, as Will said. Dumbo has opened some triple word score, the top middle one, but it's not really that great to play there. If you have a high scoring play, which I think David might have. I don't remember exactly what he has. Yeah, he has Dozier. That's really good, but a number of plays that score maybe 30 points from that D are going to open a spot underneath to play a bonus. And once that bonus is played, if that ever happens, there's going to be trouble because, again, the board is not going to be very wide open. So it's not super ideal to play from the D, and that's why I like the play of Dumbo. It sort of puts a little bit of pressure on the opponents. Like if you play through this D, you're going to be opening something new, and we see this very often in Scrabble, where the bonus squares interact with each other. Bonus squares and the spots to play 7 or 8 letter words, they interact with each other in a pretty interesting way. But I think David's going to be happy to score some points here, whatever he does, since he has the Z, and just try and keep his rack, the letters he leaves, his rack leave. He's going to try to keep that as nice as possible and try to draw some bingo later on.
Yeah, you could see he set Dozier up, but to Josh's point, I did feel like maybe just playing ZO at that base of signaled with Zay and Odd might be a nice way to flip the position on its head, keeping a really nice leave of leader. So if Harshan plays off of the D of Dumbo, David would be in position to potentially counter with a bingo of his own there. So it looked like David was setting up Dozier, though, so we'll see if he goes ahead with that.
Now, ZO or ZOL at the bottom, both big options. ZOL would set up an S hook he doesn't have, but does he take the D spot up top, or does he keep a great leave and score points at the bottom instead? This is a very difficult decision for David, and he'll spend a lot of time here.
We do see Dozer lined up. Actually, he might play that relatively soon once he realizes he has one of the last 2 I's. The I being a love-hate tile for a lot of us. When we have more than one I, we're not usually very happy, but the I can be very useful to drawing longer words if you only have one of them. So I think it does have some amount of value to keep this I left over, but David is going to play it. And we'll see if he manages to draw some vowels. That's the other thing to consider here. The unseen letters are somewhat heavy with vowels. I know you're saying, well, 12 vowels and 15 consonants, That's fewer than 12 is fewer than 15, but that's actually for the English language that is pretty heavy on vowels. So we see David only drawing one vowel, but I think his decision was sound.
Yeah, crucially, Dumbo did block Erotize, Erotize, which played from the E for about 80 points. So,
wow. Yeah.
Big move there, big pivotal moment in Harshan choosing right on accident, so perhaps. But now his rack, neither player has found that crucial H. It is still in the bag, perhaps now the biggest tile left in this game, more important than the S, because S's don't do much for you right now. Harshan, ABEGNPY, will have good scoring options, but once again, if he scores BEANY, plays at the bottom of the board, BE and ED, the overlaps, that is 37, turns over 5 tiles, checks a lot of the boxes, but opens his board wide up for David Eldar. PUBE, playing through the U in Dumbo.
You can say pube, Matt. We're fine.
Pube. Okay.
Yeah.
Pube plays through the U in Dumbo, or GYBED to the D in signaled all options. But before we can discuss Harshan playing Beanie, he is going to open an N and a Y out there, taking a little bit of a risk. But David is not going to be able to do anything in response to this.
Yeah, this is going to work out pretty well for Harshan, especially if he draws that H. Yeah, David's sitting on 3 T's. He does have that last S. We were discussing how the S is somewhat dampened on this particular board. But yeah, it's seeming like the S is not actually going to matter all that much here, unless David manages to find some sort of play that sets it up. But yeah, he's...
And Harshan has found the H, but a lot of consonants to go with it. He's got to feel great about the options of light or right playing alongside carry on. That's going to be huge in this game. Wow.
I think pite is a word as well. So
this is really, really good for Harshan. David doesn't know it. He might fear it. But yeah, after Harshan's next move, he's going to have quite the lead on David. So this has been a very interesting and close game as compared to the other two. And yeah, it looks like Harshan has quite the advantage right now. But we'll see what happens.
Pite going to score a boatload of points next turn, and David can't really do anything to address it, nor can he know Harshan has pulled it. Options likely TWAY to the Y, or TAW alongside Exitons. If I'm David, if I don't have that H, I probably do want to play TAW, leave the Y exposed, leave the N exposed in Beanie, leave the other spot as well. If Harshan hits one, I need to have the other one for myself. What do you think of that analysis? Am I full of it, Will, or would you do the same?
It makes sense to me. So he is going to go ahead and play Taw. And I guess the saving grace there is that he's keeping very good bingo tiles. And now there are maybe chances. I'm not sure about that Y. It's going to be tough, but maybe the N if he's able to draw some vowels here. And it looks like he's drawn not enough. That is not a good draw for David Eldar here. And Harshan should be pretty quick to hammer this spot in the upper right corner and take a pretty solid lead, with David having very little recourse to respond.
Now, he also has Eplight, YPLIGHT, from that Y for 48, Pite up top 58. Is that a consideration? Oh, Pith instead the play. It's holding the G.
That looks like a clear-cut mistake to me.
Absolutely.
So Pith scoring a very solid 50, but leaving 3 consonants, whereas Pite would have scored an extra 8 points. Every point so important in such a close game, and keeping only 2 consonants compared to 3. The weird thing is that Harshan had that word set up on his rack, so I'm not sure if it was an active choice or maybe doubt in the word, but I am surprised to not see Pite be played there, Josh.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting Pite, and that would have left only 2 letters in the bag for David. And the play that he has lined up right now, I believe, is HINT from the HI in the middle of the board. That play was looking very, very bad after Pite, because it would completely empty the tile bag and leave Harshan with complete information on what David has. But now, if he makes this play, he'll be leaving one tile in the bag, and there might be some threats potentially from that Owen Kogon, potentially through the N or the Y of Beanie that Harshan might want to address, as well as the hook that Hint or Hilt now that is lined up would be creating the S hook. So I think David now has an outside chance here, but he's going to have to iterate through all of the possible, or as many as possible, of the draws that he can get after his 2-tile plays to see which 5-letter leave is the best one for him and gives him the best chances. I think he's really not going to be able to score nearly enough with any other plays on this board to give him a good chance of winning the game, so he's opting to think about a bingo next turn.
What an interesting decision, pith instead of pipe. We've seen players from around the world with very different opinions on the G tile. I know in North America, despised, but Harshan, I mean, light or right play in that spot as well, and he opted to hold on to it. I'm not seeing any one spot on this board that makes the G very strong for Harshan, but that GRL leave after pith is going to work out, as David did have most of the remaining consonants, and Harshan picks up vowels here. I'm a very curious decision.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the options that David has put on his rack. It seemed like he was considering Sintan through the Y of Beanie. That's going to score 27 points, so he would be up by 1 point going into sort of a difficult end game, given that there are 3 tiles in the bag right now. He would be keeping 2 tiles on his rack. That really decreases his odds of drawing an outplay that plays in multiple places. An outplay, of course, being a move that uses your final tiles, ending the game. That is definitely something he's considering right now without a great way of scoring points. Do I try to go out first and get tiles from Harshan's rack added to my score, or do I go for a bingo because I don't think I can score enough points? I think that's a really tough decision for David.
This is actually super interesting. So I am going to take back what I said earlier about David not having any plays other than plays going for a 7 or 8 letter word. The play of Sintan through the Y will put him up by 1 point in an end game where he is drawing 3 tiles, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And if he manages to draw an outplay, a play that uses all of his tiles, he would be having 5 tiles on his rack after that play. That actually might do it for him, given that Sintan would be blocking the only viable scoring spot for Harshan. But it's extremely hard to make a play like this, and it doesn't actually look very good because David will have so many tiles on his rack next move. So it's actually interesting that because of Harshan's 4-letter play rather than a 5-letter play, it's a lot more difficult to make a play such as Sintan and empty the bag. But
leaving
yeah,
3 tiles in the bag, so underrated in Scrabble, a thing players look to do. I wonder if that was a rationale, but yeah, it's paid off, as to Josh's point.
Yeah, because if there were 2 tiles in the bag and Sintan was played, as we see just Tan here, interesting play. I wonder what that's about, why he's not trying to open a new spot here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Matt. I just it's an interesting choice, of course. In a vacuum, scoring a couple points and leaving good bingo tiles makes sense, but it does feel like Harshan may be able to block everything on this turn right now.
LUNG is an option that looks rather strong for him here. He's not going to be able to score well, but I think at this point now, 20 points ahead, 1 tile in the bag, you can survive anything but a bingo, and lung, a great way to block all of that stuff off. He's also got to look at what bingos are even possible in this unseen pool, AAELNOST. What kind of inferences can he make as well? So the bingos with an E in the bag, sonantal plays through the N. With an S in the bag, neonatal, a word he should be extremely familiar with as a pediatrician, plays. And also sneakily, sealant, SEALANT, plays at the top of this board.
That might be the idea.
But
that might be the idea behind tan.
Wow, that's amazing. So the A insertion between the R and tan, rattan is a word that would be brilliant to be playing that, trying to draw into sealant.
I mean, from David's perspective last turn, there were 2 A's and 2 E's, I believe, unseen. So I guess the most likely 2-tile draw he would get out of all the possibilities would be an A and an E. And drawing into sealant, it just seems like he's been blocking, that his last play just blocked the top of the board, but instead it actually creates a really sneaky idea. And actually, from Harshan's perspective, if he does see that sealant plays up there, he's going to have a really hard time deciding what to block, because now Sinantal will fit through the N of Beanie and sealant will fit on the top, and Harshan cannot deal with both threats at the same time. This is becoming very, very tense. I think David wants Harshan now to see the sneaky threat he created rather than not, given what he has drawn.
Yeah. Very interesting position. You've got to make some degree of inference as well after David's last play. Does tan imply he's held and a T, an N? Do I know those are not in the bag right now? What about an S? Do I think David has an S right now? Is it most likely that an E, O, or A is in the bag? What is most likely for him to have? These are not 7 random tiles on David's rack. They're, definitely 2 random tiles after the play, but what did he likely hold? What is the biggest threat unseen? Very interesting.
Ooh, Harshan's looking at the play of Ugly, which will block the threat of Sinantal, but not the threat of Neonatal. And of course, us with perfect information, Matt just did mention the 3 threats, I believe, that exist in the position here. But Harshan has to do all of that himself, and he needs to figure out, what is possible for David to have, and wanting to block 2 of the 3 threats would be probably the ideal scenario. So playing Ugly to that Y actually doesn't block the word end, beginning in N of Neonatal. So if he's missing that, that could actually cost him. But as we know, that's not what David has. David did hold the S last turn. But I have to believe that the play of tan, Harshan has to think like, well, why wouldn't he have played Hint instead? Does he just not have the S? And by thinking that way, he can then potentially see the threat of Neonatal from the N and make a play that blocks it. He has 5 minutes to make this decision. This is a pivotal decision. There are winning chances for David no matter what, but Harshan's going to look to squander those as much as possible in this move.
Yeah, per the engine, no play wins 100% of the time on this turn for Harshan. Lung to do it in every instance except with the O in the bag. Sealant would be the only way he loses that one. Some options win 6 out of 8 times as well, including Ugly or GULY or RULY per the engine as well. But nothing wins 100% in this instance. Tough.
I think tan was a brilliant play by David to give himself chances in a game that looks like it was pretty doomed, right? Like that's a really impressive play on his part. I'm given that it is a former world champion, one of the, if not behind Nigel Richards, the best players in the world. I'm sure he saw it, and that was his thinking behind that move. I'm really impressed.
I love that sort of play. When you see that sort of play, that sneaky setup play, it just feels so good.
Ugly.
Harshan is agonizing about playing Ugly, and he must see Neonatal in the pool and is trying to figure out. And Matt, your suggestion of Lung, which you at the outset of the position that you offered, that looks like it gets the job done against everything but Sealant.
It does seem to do, though. That's what the engine spits out, at least. I'm trying to run through these in-game situations and make sure it can't be outrun by anything. David will have some really high-scoring options at the top of the board. A slant playing, making ZA, IS, EL, and rattan as well. And actually, so Lung would actually tie with this exact. So Ugly at the game winning play. Lung would tie to the move Atlas underneath Dozier, which is just wild.
Yeah, that's
Amazing.
something that only one or two players in the world would be able to calculate, given the finite amount of time that they have in a game. I think Harshan having the feeling that he wanted to score more points, not being sure if maybe playing for 10 rather than 24 would be enough, putting him ahead by only 30 points with 5 tiles. I mean, from my point of view, like if I was in that position, I would be far more concerned about the sure loss of getting bingoed on. But this decision ending up, I don't know if David would have seen Atlas keeping an O to score elsewhere on the board. But yeah, that would have been incredible. That would have been incredible.
So I think the pivotal play pit, we immediately wrote it off like that's got to be a mistake, right? But leaving 3 in the bag gave Harshan a big advantage in this game. David with a really clever way to try to steal it away and just didn't quite pick up the draw he needed. This has been extremely interesting, an endgame clinic, and these two guys putting on full display why they are here right now. Some non-conventional play that has absolutely worked out to their advantage, that we're only now starting to unravel. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, David sees a slant. Yeah, it's not going to be enough in this position, but it's such a cool play. It scores, I think, around 30 points. But yeah, what a crazy finish. Harshan most definitely going to take this one, I think, if not for some crazy, I guess, 0 point move next turn. So yeah, this is wow, quite a treat.
Yeah, incredible stuff. Harshan, barring an absolute meltdown here, to move up to 2-1 with a narrow and intense game against David Eldar. This one was super exciting. This is why you're all watching today. Are you not entertained? We will cut away to a lunch break after this game, still trying to work with production crew on exactly when that break will end, so you know when to tune back in. Hopefully I can get a message in the next minute or so from them, but I think we're going to need a discussion from the players to know for sure what they want to do. Harshan double counting a slant. We may even see a challenge here if he knows he can get away with it, but I think in either case this game is Harshan's. Wow, fun stuff.
Really amazing. I mean, a couple comments in Twitch chat about the nature of pointing out better moves and criticism and things like that. I just want to make it crystal clear that these players are playing at an insanely high level throughout, and that the little errors that you've seen, I mean, even stuff like Fariner from David in the first game was, I mean, that's just, it's really, really difficult to keep track of every word in the dictionary. Sometimes, 99 times out of 100, you get that stuff right. That means one time in 100, you might make a mistake. But the players here are playing at really a level befitting of a world championship final here. It's been very, very impressive.
Exactly. They both absolutely deserve to be where they are. We're just spectators. We have a lot more information than they do. And yeah, it's definitely quite the show that they're putting on. Often when we broadcast these sorts of games, even with 3 commentators, 4 commentators, an entire chat watching, the players that are on the board are seeing things such as tan to rattan that nobody has even considered, and that just goes to show just the world-class level of play that we're seeing.
I can't believe we almost saw a tie too after talking about the slow roll and all that. It nearly came down to it in this game. That's hilarious. I will remind Josh and Will, we do have access to the overhead mic. So as soon as the last play in this game is made, which could happen, swiftly, I do want to cut and see if we get any kind of post-mortem in this situation. Right now, Harshan able to make most valid moves, and he wins this game.
Yeah, he's probably looking at just playing real next to Beanie, making RADEA and AN. That'll get the job done. He might still be holding the play of a slant and rattan, But yeah, I think he knows that he has the game in the bag. He's just making sure there isn't some massive O spot on the board. I think the best O spot for David is just dropping it between the J and the R for 12 points, which will not be enough. Real is going to score, I think, 18, putting Harshan ahead by 30 and winning the game then by 14 points, I believe.
That is correct. Yeah, Real will win by 14 in this instance.
Yeah, wow. All right. So no combo breaker just yet. Player going first is winning.
So again, 8 for 8. Will somebody break serve, or will Harshan win every other game in a seven game set? Let's cut to overhead mic as David's going to plunk this O and take the loss here.
Four, 4, 4.
Yep.
4, 5, 8.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hold on. What was in the back?
Just give me a second. Let me just take a picture.
All right.
Are we meant to submit the scores again?
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
E, sorry, to answer your question, it is an E.
Oh, really? Oh. That would have done it.
Sometimes you have to point it away and then back for it to recognize it. Yeah. Can't explain to you why.
Interscores.
Apple.
4, 5, 8. 4, 4, 4. Would you mind telling me what you're fishing for?
Sealant? Or
All right, I missed the spot.
quite a lot of things.
I missed the spot. I completely
really?
missed it. Yeah, to be fair.
You both submitted?
He's not.
I did.
That's brilliant. That's really lovely.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. It's great.
2:30 we'll start the next one.
2:30, yeah.
all right.
So we got about an hour and 15.
Thank you.
That was brilliant. Well done.
Thanks.
Harshan realizing he's dodged a bullet. David pursing his lips. The E would have done it. He knew if he had drawn a different piece of plastic out of the bag, he would have pulled off one of the all-time heists in a game. A brilliant setup and just the wrong pull on the fish. Harshan immediately realizing, wow, I didn't see the spot. That was awesome, brilliant. Always a complimentary player. We've seen nothing but incredible sportsmanship from Harshan all tournament. But wow, that was super exciting. High level Scrabble. I am so impressed.
This is hype. That's all I can say. This is so hype.
So it seems like the actual scenario was that the bag had AEO in it.
Correct.
And David drew AO, and AE would have won him this game, the tiniest margin. But the fact that he saw that as a possibility, so impressive. Harshan, you heard him say it himself. He realized it instantly. What an impressive play Tan was there to create that line. The R of Dozier preventing an A from slotting there, but somehow David found a play that gave him a chance to fit that A in between there and play a potential winning bingo. Really, really impressive stuff. So we'll have to decompress over lunch break now.
So Will, chat is already asking for a video breakdown of the TAN play. So we hope you can make that happen. I'll be on the lookout for it. You also heard at home that play will resume at 2:30 Pacific time. That is 5:30 Eastern time. That is 74 minutes from right now. So everybody watching along at home, you can see, will Harshan win 2 more games and claim his first Scrabble World Championship? Or will David Eldar complete a comeback, winning 3 of the next 5 and win himself a second title, cementing himself the second spot on the Mount Rushmore of Scrabble alongside Nigel Richards? We will cut away to a lunch break. I want to show my extreme appreciation to Will Anderson, Josh Sokol, and Wellington Jighere for coming on the headset and offering their thoughts on everything going on here. We hope to hear more from you guys after break, but on behalf of myself and everybody watching now, thank you, thank you, thank you.